The hush of the first-class cabin settled like silk over the murmur of boarding passengers. Warm lighting reflected off the brushed metal of the overhead compartments, and the leather seats gleamed with practiced perfection. It was a world built on silence, efficiency, and control. Camilla Price stepped across the threshold of the jet bridge, her heels clicking softly on the carpet. In her early 50s, immaculately dressed in navy and pearl, she moved with the assurance of someone who had long believed the world was shaped to accommodate her. Her designer tote, monogrammed of course, hung effortlessly from her shoulder. She didn't glance back at the line forming behind her. She never did. This was her route, Dallas to DC, always first class, always 2A. It wasn't about luxury, she often told people, but about peace of mind, about consistency. Camilla believed in knowing what to expect, but today something small unsettled her before she even reached her row. Seat 2B was already occupied. She slowed, not enough for anyone behind her to notice, but enough for her breath to catch. A man sat there, a black man, dressed sharply in a tailored navy suit, quiet, composed. His laptop was open, the screen casting a gentle glow across the angles of his face. He typed with ease, eyes locked on the screen, as if reviewing something far more important than the world around him. Camilla's steps resumed, but something in her gait had shifted. Her expectation had cracked ever so slightly. She reached her seat and lowered her bag with a controlled sigh. The soft thud as it touched the floor was just a little louder than necessary. Just enough to say, "I noticed." Just enough to say, "This is not quite right." He didn't flinch, didn't acknowledge her presence, didn't even glance. Camilla sat down beside him, back straight, shoulders stiff. Her arm brushed the edge of the shared armrest, and she quickly adjusted her posture to reclaim it. Territory matters, even in silence. She glanced sideways at him. No ring, no company lanyard, no indication of who he was or what he did. Yet he sat there as if the seat had always been his. The feeling that had begun as discomfort now began to ferment. Subtle, but sharp. It wasn't fear. No, not quite. Camilla didn't think of herself as someone who feared people. But this, it felt like a disruption, a breach of the unspoken contract of this cabin. First class was supposed to feel curated. She shifted again, this time deliberately, her elbow brushing against his as if by accident. Still no reaction. His fingers danced over the keyboard like music only he could hear. Camilla pursed her lips. She knew these moments, knew how to wrap discontent in civility. She turned slightly toward him, voice as polite as crystal stemware. "Excuse me," she said, her tone almost musical. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" He didn't even pause his typing. "Yes." Just that. Nothing more. No smile. No explanation. No apology. Not even eye contact. She blinked. That wasn't how it was supposed to go. People were supposed to explain themselves, especially if they disrupted the expected order, especially if they didn't quite fit. Camilla straightened in her seat, eyes scanning the aisle. A few rows ahead, a flight attendant was assisting another passenger. Young, poised, professional, perfect. Camilla raised her hand gently, just a small wave, not enough to draw attention, just enough to call for correction. Behind her, the cabin continued to fill. The flight, like time, moved forward. But for Camilla, everything had stopped the moment she saw him sitting there. And the man beside her, still nameless, still unreadable, typed on. He didn't play the role she had silently cast him in. That, more than anything, unnerved her. Flight attendant Maya Thompson approached with the poise of someone trained to read tension before it surfaced. Her steps were quiet, her smile practiced. Not artificial, just well-worn. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" she asked, her voice warm but measured. Camilla looked up, lips curving into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I believe there may have been a small mix-up," she said lightly, as if the situation amused her. "I think this gentleman might be in the wrong seat." Maya turned to the man in 2B. He finally paused his typing, fingers lifting off the keys, but his face remained unreadable. No protest, no amusement, no defensiveness, only stillness. His eyes met Maya's with quiet calm. Pulling out the passenger manifest from her tablet, Maya scrolled swiftly. "Mr. Reed is in his assigned seat," she said after a moment. "You're 2A and he's 2B. Camilla blinked. Her expression didn't change. Not visibly, but Maya had seen it before. The brief tightening of the jaw, the subtle retreat behind a polite mask. "That's odd," Camilla murmured. "I just assumed—" "Understandable," Maya replied, her smile unwavering. "Let me know if there's anything else you need." She turned to go, but Camilla's eyes didn't leave her. Her fingers, manicured and precise, tapped against her knee in a rhythmic staccato. Her gaze shifted from Maya to Isaiah Reed, still silent, now returning to his laptop, and back again. The discomfort hadn't left. It had simply changed shape, and Camilla Price wasn't the kind of woman to ignore a lingering discomfort, especially one she couldn't control. A few minutes passed in brittle quiet. The plane door closed. The last few passengers took their seats. The hum of engines began to rise, and with it, so did Camilla's agitation. She reached up and pressed the call button. The soft chime overhead was barely audible, but to Isaiah it was unmistakable. He didn't look up, but he knew. Maya reappeared moments later. Her posture was the same, but there was a new layer of awareness in her eyes. "Is everything okay, ma'am?" Camilla lowered her voice slightly, leaning in just enough to make the conversation seem private, though her words were meant to be heard. "I'd like to request a seat change." Maya's brows lifted, politely curious. "Is there an issue with the seat itself?" Camilla hesitated. For a brief second, the truth teetered at the edge of her tongue, unspoken but heavy. She exhaled. "No, it's not the seat," she said, casting a glance sideways. I don't feel comfortable here." It wasn't what she said that mattered. It was what she implied. Maya's smile thinned, though she kept her tone neutral. "I understand. Let me see if there are any open seats." As she tapped her tablet, the cabin remained still, but not unaware. Across the aisle, a man adjusted his tie a little too slowly. A woman 2 rows up lowered her newspaper just enough to watch over its edge. "I'm afraid we're at full capacity today," Maya said. "There aren't any seats available in first class." Camilla's lips parted just slightly. "And in the economy?" Maya glanced again, then nodded. "There are 2 seats open in the back row." Camilla sat straighter. "Perfect. He can take one." The air shifted, a ripple passed through the surrounding passengers. Subtle, restrained, but unmistakable. Someone coughed pointedly. A phone screen lifted discreetly into position. Maya didn't answer right away. She was studying Camilla carefully, measuring something beyond the words. "Just to clarify," she said quietly, "you're requesting that I move Mr. Reed to economy because you're uncomfortable sitting beside him?" Camilla offered a tight smile, chin tilted slightly upward. "I don't think that's unreasonable." Maya took a breath. "That won't be happening." Camilla's smile faltered. "Excuse me?" Maya folded her hands, her tone calm, even, but now fortified with something firmer underneath. "Mr. Reed is a first-class passenger in his assigned seat. I cannot and will not move him for someone else's comfort." The statement landed without force, but with weight. And finally, Isaiah closed his laptop. He didn't speak, but he turned slowly to face Camilla. And for the first time, she didn't know what to say. The silence between them wasn't empty. It pulsed with something unspoken. Isaiah Reed didn't raise his voice. He didn't shift in his seat or flash irritation. He simply looked at her. Calm, present, steady. Camilla met his gaze for only a second before turning away, her spine stiffening like steel under pressure. She was used to subtle battles, but this wasn't going the way she had imagined. The flight attendant hadn't caved. The man beside her hadn't begged. And now people were watching. A soft rustle came from the aisle across. A young woman in a beige sweater repositioned her phone, camera lens tilted slightly upward. Camilla noticed. Her jaw tightened. She turned toward Maya, who still stood patiently beside her, arms crossed loosely, face unreadable. I want to speak with someone else, Camilla said quietly but sharply. A supervisor, the head crew member, or the pilot. Maya's smile didn't return this time. Her voice remained professional but cool. The pilot is currently preparing for takeoff. I am the lead flight attendant on this flight. The tone was clear. You've reached the top of this chain. Camilla hesitated, then dropped her voice again, trying a different tactic. Less request, more alarm. I don't feel safe, she said. That line, soft, measured, deadly. Everything stopped. Maya's body stiffened just slightly. Isaiah didn't turn his head, but he had stopped moving entirely. His hands rested calmly atop his closed laptop. The phrase echoed, wordless but loud. I don't feel safe. It was the kind of statement that didn't need to be shouted. It was designed to cut through the room like a blade, to shift power in an instant. Across the aisle, someone exhaled sharply. A man in business attire muttered under his breath. Here we go. Maya took a long breath. Ma'am, she asked gently, are you saying you feel threatened? Camilla tilted her head, giving a practiced shrug. I'm not saying that exactly. I'm just uncomfortable. And I think for everyone's sake, it would be best if someone else took this seat. It was strategic, not accusatory, just suggestive enough to cast doubt. Isaiah moved finally, not dramatically, not forcefully. He merely closed his fingers around his laptop case, lifted it, and placed it gently into his carry-on bag beneath the seat. Then, for the first time, he turned to her fully. His voice was smooth, calm, level, and low. Ma'am, he said, are you making a formal complaint? Camilla blinked. The tone was official, measured, controlled. Isaiah reached into the inner pocket of his blazer. There was a pause. The cabin leaned into the silence. Then he pulled out a small leather case. With one fluid motion, he flipped it open. The gold FBI badge inside gleamed under the overhead light. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was the kind of moment that didn't belong to sound. It belonged to stillness. Gasps rippled softly through the rows behind them. The phone camera's angle shifted to zoom. A woman 2 rows up whispered, "Oh my God." Camilla froze. The temperature in her body dropped 10 degrees. Isaiah held the badge with a quiet firmness, then tilted his head slightly. His gaze never left her. I can take your statement now, if you'd like. Camilla's breath caught. Her words failed her. There was no longer any doubt in the air. No more implied discomfort, just clarity in the consequence. Across the aisle, a man chuckled. Guess that backfired, he murmured to no one in particular. Maya didn't move. She simply stood a half step back, eyes on Camilla now, not as a steward of comfort, but as a witness. The cabin had turned, and the woman who once believed herself in control was now the only one without a seat of power. Camilla swallowed hard. Her voice, when it came, was thin. None, no complaint. Isaiah nodded once, as if he had known that would be her answer. And slowly, without a word more, he closed the badge and slipped it back into his jacket. Then calmly, he opened his laptop again and resumed typing. Like nothing had happened. But everything had. The hum of the engine was steady now, the plane gliding above the clouds. But inside Camilla Price's chest, there was a different kind of turbulence. She didn't look at Isaiah again. She couldn't. He sat there as if nothing had changed, calm, professional, perfectly unbothered. But everything had changed because the cabin knew. She could feel it in the quiet glances, in the subtle shift of posture from passengers nearby. She could feel it in the heat behind her cheeks, the tingling burn of judgment, not spoken, but deeply felt. And then the vibration in her purse. She ignored it the first time. The second buzz came harder, then a third, relentless. Camilla's fingers, despite her best efforts, reached for the phone. She pulled it out with a motion she tried to disguise as casual. 8 missed messages, 2 from her sister, 3 from old colleagues, 1 from a board member of the Crownwell Arts Foundation, 2 numbers she didn't recognize. She tapped the most recent one, heart pounding. "Camilla, tell me this isn't you. Someone just sent me a video. Please call me back." No, 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 no. Her fingers trembled as she opened Twitter, the familiar blue icon now a threat. She didn't need to search her name. It was already trending. Our first class fail, our justice, 30,000 feet, our Camilla Price. She clicked the video. There she was. The camera caught everything, the request to move seats, the pointed words, and then the badge. That golden flash that flipped the entire narrative on its head. It already had over 650,000 views. In the comments, she thought she could whisper racism into a policy decision, then got publicly wrecked. "FBI bro didn't even flinch. That's how you handle nonsense. This lady just ruined her own life in 10 minutes flat." Camilla's mouth went dry. She looked around again. No one said anything. They didn't have to. Even Maya, the flight attendant, stood further away now. Still professional, but the gentle empathy that had once lingered in her voice was gone. It had been replaced with quiet distance. Camilla sat motionless, phone screen dimming in her lap. She wanted to disappear, to step backward in time and erase the last hour. But she couldn't, because it wasn't just humiliation. It was exposure. And worse, it was recorded. The flight began its descent. The captain's voice came over the intercom, but Camilla heard none of it. Her mind was spiraling. How far would this go? Would it die down in a few days? Or would it follow her, shadow her name, her work, her causes? Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a message. It was a call from Jonathan Wells, the director of the Marlowe Civic Foundation. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. She already knew what he'd say. That was the board she'd chaired for 7 years. She checked her email out of habit, like reaching for normalcy. But there it was. Subject line, urgent, request for resignation. Letter and beneath it from another address, "We regret to inform you that your contract with Bellin and Associates has been terminated, effective immediately." The words blurred. Her breath shortened. Reality was folding inward. And Isaiah, still typing, still calm, still untouched. The plane touched down. Passengers began gathering their things. Someone behind her whispered, "That's her." And someone else hissed, "Don't stare." But they did. They all did. She waited until the aisle cleared before rising. She didn't say goodbye to Maya. She didn't glance at Isaiah. Outside the terminal, as she approached baggage claim, her heart nearly stopped. Reporters. Not a mob, but enough. Microphones, cameras, voices rising. "Ms. Price, do you regret what you said on the plane? Was it racial profiling?" The video's at 1.2 million views. Any comment? She turned away quickly, sunglasses shaking as she slipped them on. But someone shouted her name, her full name, and she knew in that moment this would not go away. Not tomorrow, not next week, not even next year, because it was never just about a seat. It was about everything she had always assumed she owned: space, comfort, control. And now, for the first time, none of it belonged to her anymore. Camilla Price sat in her kitchen, the blinds drawn tight against the morning sun that once warmed her world. Her phone lay face down on the marble counter, buzzing silently beneath her fingers. She didn't need to turn it over. She already knew the kinds of messages waiting, statements to sign, posts to deny, explanations to release, PR advisors, foundation chairs, former friends. Some feigned concern, most didn't. A pot of tea sat untouched beside her, cold, like the air in the room, like the voice she had used in first class that day, controlled, pointed, and now unmistakably recorded. On the table sat the Washington Daily. Page 3 featured a still frame of the video, her face caught mid-sentence, turned toward the camera with lips parted just before denial. Next to it, a caption, "Woman attempts to remove black FBI agent from first class. Entire flight watches her fall apart." Camilla had spent decades building a reputation. Board memberships, fundraisers, annual galas for inclusion and equity. Ironic now, she had always believed her presence in those rooms meant something. Her name brought her grace, but grace, it turned out, wasn't a currency she could spend forever. A soft knock echoed from the front door. She didn't move. Then it came again, firmer. She rose slowly, her silk robe hanging loose at the collar. Through the peephole, she saw her sister, Ellen, standing on the porch with a look of tired worry carved across her face. Camilla opened the door wordlessly. Ellen stepped in without waiting. She held a newspaper in one hand, and in the other, a photo. Framed, old. The two of them in college, arms draped around each other at a campus protest. A banner in the background read, "Diversity is not a trend, it's the truth." Camilla stared at it, expression unreadable. "I brought this," Ellen said softly, "to remind you that you didn't always sound like that woman in the video." Camilla's voice cracked, faint and dry. "But I was that woman." Ellen didn't contradict her. Silence filled the room again. Not awkward, just honest. Necessary. "I thought he didn't belong," Camilla finally whispered. "I didn't even realize how loud that thought had become." "You didn't say it out loud," Ellen replied, "but you didn't have to. That's why it was so dangerous." Camilla looked away. Dangerous. Not violent, not aggressive, not overt, just entitled, quietly, subtly, completely, and now irreversible. She didn't cry. She didn't collapse. That would have made it about her again. Instead, she sat down at the table beside the untouched tea and picked up the framed photo. "I don't want to write a statement," she said. Ellen tilted her head. "Then what will you do?" "I'll resign," Camilla replied, "from every board, every position. Not because they asked me to, because I should have known better." Ellen waited. "And then?" she asked. Camilla hesitated. "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe I'll just listen." 1 week later, the viral video had topped 4 million views. In D.C., Agent Isaiah Reed passed through the lobby of a federal building, his badge clipped quietly to his chest. He'd been asked to give a talk at an internal bias training next month. He hadn't responded yet. Maybe he would, maybe not. For him, that flight was just another day. Another room where he was presumed out of place until he proved otherwise. Except this time, he hadn't needed to. He had let the truth speak for itself. And that, perhaps, was the most powerful act of all. Lesson learned: discomfort is not the same as danger. Camilla's vague sense of unease became a false accusation with real consequences. In a world built on coded behavior, unspoken assumptions can be as harmful as overt acts. Power no longer protects ignorance. The social immunity once granted by wealth, race, or status can dissolve in a single moment of truth, especially when that truth is filmed and shared. Silence, when paired with integrity, is louder than outrage. Isaiah's refusal to engage in confrontation didn't make him passive, it made him undeniable. His stillness became his strength. We are not who we say we are. We are how we act when no one is watching, or worse, when everyone is. Entitlement, when exposed, is rarely graceful. But accountability, when chosen, is the first step toward repair.